Welcome. Welcome to Celebrate Aging here at Emmanuel Nursing Home. As you can tell by the red, white, and blue, of course everything except me, I don't know why I didn't wear my denim today, we are getting ready for the 4th of July. And I'd also like to put out to you that as we think about our nation and so much we think of our soldiers and how they are participating in the world as they serve under the flag, that this is a wonderful opportunity for us to remember that there are people who have stories to be told, people who are aging, and as they age, they have these stories within them, and unless we ask them what their stories are and begin to write them down, those stories will be lost to us. There's many beautiful books out that tell us of wars and people who have served in them, telling us of how things have come about and how we are where we are today. And it's important as we celebrate aging that we celebrate the stories of the people who have great stories to tell us. So what I'm going to share with you today, as thinking about the 4th of July and so many of our residents who have served under the flag, I'm going to read to you a human story that one of our residents, he has since passed away, but his name is John Lakeman, and he served in World War II and had a wonderful, interesting story to tell of his time in service. And so I'd like to read it to you as a way of getting you interested and saying, you know, I have an uncle or a brother or my dad, or, you know, they've been serving too, and I should write all this down, and I should get this down, get it recorded somehow. For that history, we don't need it to be lost. There's things that will inspire conversation and also a way of honoring the person who has served in the military. So let me begin by sharing with you John Lakeman's story. I met with him several times. I wrote up many rough drafts from the notes I took from his verbal telling me the story, and then I would let him change it and correct it because sometimes I was so busy listening, I got the information wrong. But this is how he began. It was April in 1943 when I received my greetings, we put that in quotations, from Uncle Sam to join the armed forces in World War II. And then he puts in parentheses, in other words, I was drafted. I had been working in the shipyards in California after my high school graduation. I took the South Pacific home to Detroit Lakes, Minnesota, and reported to the draft board in Becker County. I entered the service on May 3rd, 1943. My basic training took place at Fort Riley, Kansas, where I then took 17 weeks of mechanical training. I was shipped out from Fort Meade, Maryland, and unfortunately I did have to spend a month in the hospital, not for being shot at or being in battle, but for playing volleyball and spraining his ankle on the base. My first orders found me in Glasgow, England, waiting to get on field duty. I shipped over on the Isle of France, a luxury liner turned into a troop carrier. Going overseas in January was rough. One night, we hit a barge. The bunks were laying lengthways, and the guys slid into the next bunk. It hit that hard. That must have been a rude awakening. My first request was to be assigned as a mechanic, and my second choice was a driver. There were no calls at that time for mechanics, and so I was trained in the driving of what we call ducks. D-U-K-W-S. Isn't that a funny name? They call them ducks. And if you've ever been to Wisconsin, to the Dells, Wisconsin Dells, you can actually ride on a duck and see what it's all like. Duck is D-U-K-W, and it was actually GMC built. The D means it was designed in 1942. The U stands for utility vehicle. The K is telling the GMC people that it's all-wheel drive. And the W stands for two-wheeled rear axles. So it doesn't stand for a specific term, but to GMC it tells exactly what it is. So ducks were amphibious cargo haulers and they could haul 2.5 tons of stuff. In the water, a duck could go 6 miles an hour unloaded and 4 miles an hour loaded. So they didn't go too fast, but they were very dependable. A propeller on the duck could motor it through the water, and as it neared the beach, the driver would drop the wheels, the propeller would be brought up, and then the duck crawled on shore. Ducks were needed to haul supplies to the troops as well as the soldiers themselves. They would transport ammunition and supplies to the shore and then back to the ship for more. Coming back to the ship for more was often tricky. The sea could be rough, the waves being over 10 feet high, and so the driver had to hit the wave at an angle just right so it wouldn't roll those ducks over. If the duck got rolled over, it sank, which was not good. Drivers wore life jackets, and guess what they called them? Mae Wests. You get the picture. And again, if you wouldn't have a storyteller like John, you'd never know something like that. He also told us that when the uniforms would get wet, it's salt water, then they'd get very, very stiff. He talks too about D-Day, about the landing, and remembering the Battle of the Bulge when they were hauling gasoline like crazy back and forth. That's one thing about ducks, they hardly ever got stuck. It rained a lot, there's a lot of mud, but because of the wheels and how they were built, they rarely ever got stuck. He says, often we would be able to pull 2.5-ton jimmies out of the mud. So he tells us about something that is very intriguing, that's something that we didn't know. And then he tells us too about some of the normal stuff. My paycheck was $20 a month when I was in the States and $30 a month when I served overseas. I sent $10 to my mother every month, and the government matched it. That money went a long way back in the 1940s, and reminding us that gasoline at one time was only 18 cents a gallon. Well, I'd like to share with you a website for many of you who have computers. I have it written on the board in here. I just want to show it to you. It's www.WWII, those are small case I's, because if we do World War II, we'd have the capital I's, www.iimemorial.com. And it talks about our national site in Washington, D.C., where they have the memorial. And if you go on the registry, just to see how it works, type in last name Marthaler, M-A-R-T-H-A-L-E-R, first name Bernard, B-E-R-N-A-R-D. He is my father-in-law, and you will read about how he was drafted and sworn into the Army in 1944, sailed on the Queen Mary to Italy. His first fight was in the Po Valley Campaign. He was signed to the 59th Infantry. And as we put that information in about him, as families know about this site, you can go and insert information about your loved one so that the registry can be so interesting and complete. And things that aren't on there, of course, is that Dad reminded us that the pay that they got as soldiers, they also took out the toothpaste, shampoo, and life insurance. So by the end of the month, it was like a $6 check. Things have changed since then, and we love to hear these stories. If you have stories that need to be told that you'd like to tell, you can contact me, Vicki Marthaler at Emmanuel. I'd be happy to help you in the telling of your story. And if you have a family member that has stories to tell, start writing them down. That's how we celebrate aging, today and every day. Happy 4th of July.